Hey guys, I'm going to review The Tree of Life, and this is a sort of philosophical epic, and it's directed by Terrence Malick, and it stars Brad Pitt and Jessica Chastain and Sean Penn. Sean Penn has like three lines in the movie, but that's not really the point. The film isn't really that driven, as you will see, or if you have seen, or whatever. But yeah, the film is more about images and the ecstasy of those images and how they relate to each other. And if you have seen articles online or if you've seen the trailer or whatever, you know that the film is sort of, I guess, to be as an overview, it's more like it's about the beginning of life and the end of life and all the things in between. And it brings to our consciousness, questions like why are we here, things that we are always asked, but also about how we develop certain tendencies as human beings and um, how we are influenced as a society. Questions like that, and I think that these are handled very, very well in the film. Um, the story is pretty much centered around a family in the 1950s, and the dad is played by Brad Pitt, and he's a very volatile, oppressive, no nonsense dad. And normally, I'm not a fan of Brad Pitt when he does sort of straight dramatic work. For me, he was never convincing as an emotional actor. I love it when he's a physical actor. I think he's fantastic when he's Tyler Durden in Fight Club, or even movies like Burn After Reading or 12 Monkeys. He's great in that kind of stuff. But I will have to say that in this movie, I think that he did a fantastic job. And I think this is one of his best performances to date, actually. Um, I think the reason me feeling detached from him as a dramatic actor really works in this instance because he's very detached from his family, and that makes him very enigmatic. And it's a very clinched performance. And he is seen as like a very tough dad, but he's not a stereotypical villain. The film's not going to uh, simplify it that much for us. He is a dad who really loves his family, and you can see that he just has a very interesting way of going about that. He makes a lot of mistakes, as does everyone. But it's a complete juxtaposition from his wife, played by Jessica Chastain, and she is a very ethereal, graceful, more liberated part of the story, or represents the part of humanity, I guess. And they have sons, and the story is sort of seen through the eyes of the sons, or over the shoulder of the sons, I should say, and one in particular, one of the boys. And it's really wonderful because you get to see kind of the birth of all the sons in the way that, or the birth of humanity, I should say, is kind of the symbol. And you see the innocence and the fun aspect of when you're a child, but then you start to see them developing anger and angst and violence and all of these things that of course inevitably happen to all of us. And I really, really liked the way that the film developed in that way, because you don't see many just typical scenes here and there in the movie. It's more like little snapshots of moments that just kind of happen. It's like moments that you remember of your childhood, nostalgia, and all that sort of stuff. And it builds sort of orchestrally. And I really like that. And it reminded me a lot of movies, of course, like 2001, A Space Odyssey. It's going to be compared. But also films like Koyaanisqatsi, which is a film from the 80s that I really love. And to me, it really was similar in the way that it built almost musically. And I say that it builds musically and orchestrally, I think, because there is a lot of classical music in this movie, wonderful pieces that I'm a really big fan of. So that was another thing that I loved about the film. It was very powerful and very effective. Um, but the film, I think, is very deep and at times absolutely extraordinary. There were moments where I was just literally, I mean, completely, you couldn't have taken me away from the film. It has been said to be very esoteric, or at least I've heard, built to be very, unusual, completely different from anything you've ever seen before. And I don't necessarily agree with that. To me, the film wasn't esoteric enough. I loved the first hour. I thought it was wonderful, and I loved the way that finally I was watching a film that was not insulting my intelligence and was allowing me to just kind of see these images and kind of draw my own conclusions from it. But I felt like towards the end of the film, middle end, it became lesser. I felt like it was starting to become, some of the symbolism in it felt a little bit forced. I don't want to say cliche because that's, I think, a little bit too strong a word, but just a little bit forced. And I think you probably see what I mean if you see the movie. But that being said, if I go, I mean, I will go see this again, but when I see it again, I think that I may feel completely differently about it. The complaints that I have, I may see them completely different the second time around because it is one of those films that I think that if I see it again, I will form different opinions about it, and that's not a bad thing at all. Um, because it is a very unique film, and I think that if you love film, you owe it to yourself to see this kind of movie because there are moments, as I said, that are absolutely mesmerizing, extraordinary in it. And I think that if when you walk out of it, you will have lots of opinions and questions kind of building in your mind to talk about, and that's really a good thing. Um, and like I said, I mean, I do have complaints about it, but I love the film a lot, and it will most likely be on my top 10 of the year. I mean, that's not definite, of course, but I can see definite possibility there. And yeah, so definitely go see this movie. It's definitely a great escape from all the summer mayhem. So yeah, see ya.